What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, coming to you live from the 412. Shout out to all our members and our super chatters. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Find all of my work, including a pretty important news piece that I just broke on si.com/NFL/Steelers. I apologize that I'm a couple minutes late this afternoon. Why? Because I was letting the world know, and I'll let you guys know, that Shadeur Sanders is coming to town this week to visit the Pittsburgh Steelers with a pre-draft visit, a top 30 visit. Sources tell All Steelers Talk, Steelers on SI, and myself. A massive day for the Pittsburgh Steelers in what has been, I think, as unpredictable of a draft as they come for the black and gold. You go back several years and you could look at the Kenny Pickett draft and say things like, okay, you didn't know it was going to be Kenny, but you knew it was going to be a quarterback. You were pretty sold on the fact that that was the position the Pittsburgh Steelers were going after. You can go back to other drafts and say, hi, I didn't expect TJ Watt to fall or Cam Hayward to fall, or I didn't expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to trade up for Devin Bush. Those are all instances where you looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers and we're a little thrown off by the situation. But this one seems to be taking a turn every other day. The Pittsburgh Steelers, at least once a week, have a new name to watch or new names to watch. And this week, it's Shedeur Sanders. It started with Jackson Dart. That was what the weekend conversation was. Jackson Dart's coming to Pittsburgh. He's here for a pre-draft visit. The Pittsburgh Steelers clearly have interest. They're on a short list of teams who have spent the most time with the Ole Miss quarterback. What does that mean? How realistic is it that he ends up with the Pittsburgh Steelers? And today, this week, it's Shedeur Sanders. A lot of talk about Shedeur Sanders. ESPN's Adam Schefter saying that Shedeur Sanders is the name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. You have teams that believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New Orleans Saints are the only two teams battling it out for Shedeur. I talked about it yesterday, how I didn't believe the Pittsburgh Steelers were very into Shedeur Sanders because of the whole comes with a crowd, comes with cameras. And, I think himself is a good leader, a good quarterback, but the noise that surrounds him, maybe unintentionally, is quite a bit. And I don't know if that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. They did not go to Colorado's Pro Day. I think that sent a pretty clear message to everybody that, okay, why were you not there? Are you in the belief that Shedeur Sanders isn't going to fall to you? Or are you in the belief that you're out on Shedeur Sanders? Well, maybe it's the first, because the latter doesn't seem to hold any weight. And maybe I was wrong as of yesterday, because as of today, well, he's coming to Pittsburgh. He's expected to come to Pittsburgh, land tomorrow and or Thursday, and spend some time with Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, probably Arthur Smith and company, and talk about what could come, what could happen in the NFL draft, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to end up with the Colorado QB. We could go back months, okay? We'll start there, where Shedeur Sanders was not a name to watch for Pittsburgh because he was expected to be a first overall pick. The Steelers weren't going to have any shot at him, although many people wanted to act as if that was a good opportunity for the Steelers. They should trade up and get Shedeur Sanders. I mean, a lot of people asked me, hey, should the Steelers make a move, go up to number one and go get Shedeur Sanders? The answer was no. There was never a situation where Shedeur at number one made sense for Pittsburgh, just like Cam Ward doesn't make sense for Pittsburgh. Once Shedeur started falling and you started thinking, okay, Vegas, New York with the Giants, maybe Cleveland is too high, but I think these other teams could potentially be in the mix to where the Steelers look and say, that's a spot we can move to. There was conversation to be had, but not much of it, because you didn't anticipate the Steelers making a move for a name like Shedeur or like anybody. Okay, well, months have passed. Weeks have passed. Quarterback situations have gone all over the board. And where we find ourselves today is the Pittsburgh Steelers welcoming a quarterback in Mason Rudolph, hoping for a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, And by the minute, I think getting closer to the realization that they have to actually consider a first-round option in the 2025 NFL draft. Do I think that's the best way to go about it? No, I've stayed pretty strong with that opinion that I think this year is the opportunity to get somebody that develops. Next year is the opportunity to get somebody who's very good. Well, I think Shadeur Sanders is in a different category because he's not Jackson Dart. He's not Tyler Shuck. He's above both of them. He's the only guy outside of Cam Ward that I think has a first-round potential, that I think has first-round potential. The only guy outside of Cam Ward that I could look at and say there's a justification for taking him in the first 32 picks. And if you could find him at 21, I mean, it's hard to deny that talent. Yesterday, I denied if the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted it. Today, I'm sitting here going, maybe I was wrong. I read those tea leaves very incorrectly. And maybe this is just them doing their due diligence on the situation. Maybe this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, just making sure that I wasn't getting called out on Twitter because somebody tweeted something about Shedeur Sanders. Caught me off guard for a quick second there. Don't want to be getting hate from the Schefters and the Ari Mirovs and those guys in the middle of a podcast. That being said, the Pittsburgh Steelers could just be, hey, just like Jackson Dart, just like Tyler Shuck, I think less of Jalen Milroe, but just like Jalen Milroe, hey, we just have to make sure that we fully understand who this guy is. I think with Shedeur Sanders, it holds more weight than the others. Why? Because the guy comes with cameras. The guy comes with attention. The guy comes with outside noise that he doesn't even create, but others around him do. You cannot deny the Deion Sanders element of this. You can't. It's just impossible to. If you could, Shedeur Sanders would be top 5 pick and there would be no questions asked because you'd just be looking at the fact that this guy led the country last year in passing yards, passing touchdowns, passing yards per game, passing yards per attempt, passer rating, and per completion percentage. That's nuts. That's a nuts year for a quarterback who has the arm strength, who has the ability to throw each level of the field. But it's the outside stuff. It's the off the field stuff that you worry about that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers a little tiny bit worry about. And I'll say Shedeur is back on the board. You got to read into it one way or the other. Either they're just doing their homework or they're not. But you got to take a guess at the same time and say, okay, there's at least some interest. There's at least a little bit of interest in Shedeur Sanders. The big question is, would he fall to 21? I don't think he would. I don't think that Shedeur makes it all the way to 21. If he does, he's a steal. I mean, I've been told the Steelers would draft a quarterback at 21, even if it's not their most likely position. It is a position on the board for them. It is going to remain a position on the board for them. Shedeur at 21 is really hard to pass up talent-wise. And if the Steelers are able to use this meeting, which this is what they're going to do, they're going to use this meeting to understand Shedeur Sanders, to understand what that outside noise is going to be, and if it's going to be too loud for them to overcome. If it's going to be too much for them and a team that is already incredibly loud and has some voices that maybe they'd like to already lessen. That could be the case. And if you're able to learn enough about Shedeur Sanders, which by all accounts, okay, I will say that the Steelers, and I have been told that teams have some concerns about if Shedeur Sanders comes with too much outside noise. But I have also been told that Shedeur Sanders is a leader and his teammates love him, and he's a guy that's going to step up in big moments. And okay, great. The Steelers are going to be looking for a lot of that in this pre-draft visit. They're going to be looking to make sure that Shedeur is not just a tie-off of Deion, that those two can be separate, and that Shedeur could just be the Steelers quarterback, the guy who's going to come in here and hopefully lead a franchise for the next 10 plus years. That's what the Steelers are going to learn in this draft or in this visit. And then if he falls to them at 21, what they learn in this pre-draft visit kind of depends on whether or not they feel comfortable taking him. Would they move up for him? Again, it all depends on this draft or this visit. If this visit goes well, maybe. I don't know if you're going all the way to 8. I have a hard time believing the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to give up everything they could give up to get to 8 to overjump the New Orleans Saints. There's no chance they're going higher than the New York Giants and moving all the way up into the top 5. That's not going to happen. But I could see them saying, okay, he's at 15. Let's make a move. He's at 16. He's at 14. Let's make a move. Okay, he just passed Dallas. Let's make sure nobody else goes back up for him. And there might not be teams in that gap that you're worried about, but you're worried about the Saints coming back in. You're worried about a team making a move for Shedeur Sanders. And that's when I think they could make a move. I don't think they'd go all the way up to 8. I do think they'd sit there with contemplation at 12, 13, 14, and so on. And maybe at that point, they'd go get Shadeur Sanders. Wild that we've come here. But I'll say this. I'm okay with Shedeur over Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck and probably Jalen Milroe. I am. I think that if you're going to take a quarterback in this year's draft, which the Steelers are most likely going to do at some point, then at least take one who's got the arm talent to make this thing happen. And Shedeur is a guy that has the arm talent to make things happen. He doesn't have the rocket throw it 90-yard arm, but he's got a good arm. He's got limited mobility, which is concerning, but I think you can develop it a little bit and make him a guy who's elusive enough to at least escape the pocket and see what he could do there. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I would go Kenneth Grant. I would go potentially Walter Nolan. I would go Derek Harmon. I would probably go Mecca Ibuka, even though ESPN's Mel Kiper has him dropping to the second round. Same with Kenneth, same with Walter Nolan. But Shedeur's up there. Like, I'd go Shedeur Sanders over a Matthew Golden. I'd go Shedeur Sanders over any other quarterback outside of Cam Ward. I'd go Shedeur Sanders over a running back. I'd go Shedeur Sanders over Nicky Muware or Malachi Starks. I'd go Shedeur Sanders over any of those guys. There's got to be conversation there. I'm not ruling out Shedeur where we sit here today. I was ruling him out yesterday. Updates constantly coming. That's the craziest part of this draft for the Steelers, is that we sit here. It's April 8th, 4:21 p.m. And the roller coaster ride continues. We still don't have an answer from Aaron Rodgers. The Pittsburgh Steelers still have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. They need somebody in the first round that's going to make an impact that's significant enough to change the course of this franchise, whether it's on defense or offense. And that's either a defensive tackle, an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, potentially a superstar safety, or a quarterback. And we have no idea because they're doing it in shifts. They brought in Trey Amos today out of Ole Miss, and you're sitting there thinking, why are you looking at a corner? Are you considering a corner? You bring in Donovan McMillan out of Pitt, and you're going, are you considering a safety in the middle of the draft? Is that when you're looking safety? It's just very interesting. The draft roller coaster right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers is all over the place. Where it goes, I have no idea. Shedeur Sanders is on it, though. Wild times. I'm sure you guys have questions about it. One other thing I want to address here before I start diving into all your guys' questions and rounding out the show the same way we do every day is Aaron Rodgers and tomorrow night, which would be the big night out with Pat McAfee. There's a lot of rumors flying around about this. Obviously, our boyfriend of the show, Mark Caboli, says it's not going to happen. That's not an instance that's not on the docket for Pat McAfee's big show in Pittsburgh tomorrow. I've been told that there are some high up people in the NFL who might not believe that, who might think that the big night out is the big announcement for Aaron Rodgers, and that's when it's coming. I have no idea. I don't talk to Aaron. I've never talked to Aaron. I've talked to people on Aaron's side of things. His very limited, very secure camp. I've learned nothing from them about whether or not he's going to make that announcement on Wednesday night or not. I would not rule it out. I do think it's the most dramatic, most wild way to do this, to end this saga. And to be honest with you, it's nuts that it's April 8th, and we have faded to the point where me as a journalist, as the guy who needs to be on top of things throughout all of this, there are certain parts of the year where I do not go anywhere without a laptop, where I always have a backpack on. Everywhere you could see me walking through Target or Trader Joe's or wherever, I got a backpack on with my laptop in it. I'm that weird 29-year-old dude who's walking through the mall with a laptop. And that's because you're just waiting for the news to break. I'm walking around with my laptop the last 2 or 3 days and all throughout Florida. And my wife and friends and everybody else is like, what are you waiting for? What is the news that could break? We have all somehow just like faded into the loss of Aaron Rodgers. We don't even know what's going on anymore. It's nuts. We just have kind of given up on it, which I'm all about. Don't get me wrong. I would much rather sit here and talk to you guys about Shedeur Sanders coming to Pittsburgh and some real news other than Aaron Rodgers announcing it at the big night out. But there's a chance that it's tomorrow. I don't know how strong that chance is. I am full unsupport of fully against Aaron Rodgers potentially doing that. Fully against it. I think it gives the Steelers in this situation just the cherry on top to all the drama that has come with this, and just says I am going to be as big, loud, and obnoxious and self-centered as everybody is trying to say that I am, and I'm trying to ignore. It gets the signing off on a bad foot. It's already a bad situation. It's already a terrible situation. I truly do not believe that Aaron Rodgers wants to genuinely come to Pittsburgh. I truly don't believe he wants to go anywhere. I think he wants to go to Minnesota, and they're not giving him a contract. I don't think he's waiting around for them. I truly believe that he is just sitting here fully aware of what the options are and saying, all right, well, if I'm not going to go to Minnesota, at least I'm going to just, wait it out. What are you still thinking about? Nothing. You're not thinking about anything. You're sitting around with an answer somewhere, one way or another, unless Minnesota calls you and saying, all right, well, we're just going to drag this thing out and we're going to hope for the best. We're going to hope for more money. We're going to hope for a longer contract. We're going to hope for whatever. I don't think he wants to come to Pittsburgh. I think he's going to end up here, but I don't think he wants to be here. And man, that's a wild way to go about your quarterback position, which is the most important position on the field. And you're going to pick the guy that at 41 years old doesn't want to be on your organization. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. But again, when it comes to the big night out, is it going to happen? I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to play it by ear. And I would not rule out all of us getting an update at 9:05 or maybe midnight. They do it last tomorrow night when the big night out concludes and Aaron Rodgers is officially a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what happens. All right. With that said, guys, we're going to start diving in. I'm going to start diving into all your questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. Want to give a quick shout out to all of our super chatters and a quick shout out to all of our members. If you have not yet become a member and would like to, hit the link in the description below this video and make sure to call to the call-in show that will air tomorrow right about noon p.m. Eastern time. With that said, let's dive into it. Shout out our boy Chris. Next year, we can get any quarterback we want. Why reach for a QB this year, which leaves defensive tackle and running back as holes that might not get filled? I say trade down. Chris, I agree with you. I think trading down right now is in the realm of possibilities for the Steelers. I think I have to see what the board looks like at 21. If there is that one guy that stands out right there, that Kenneth Grant is on the board and nobody else is. The Emeka Ibuka is on the board and nobody else is. I'm okay with it. I think the third round is a sweet spot for running back. I think you could get a really good running back in the third round, depending on how the board falls. I think first round is where you get your defensive tackle. I'm not about quarterback in this year's draft that early. I think fourth round is a really good spot to be in. But I could see the Steelers going opposite and saying, okay, we'll go quarterback now, all of these other positions later. Again, I don't support it, but I could see the Steelers doing it if there are multiple options on the board or none that we have listed so far. Yeah, I'd trade back. And I do think it's a real possibility because Omar Khan unpromptedly gave the possibly trading back speech during the league meetings and just tossed it out there that, yeah, everything's on the table. Maybe we'll trade back. And what? Nobody asked you about that. That's what came from it. I do think that trading back for the first time in my whole time covering the Steelers is a real possibility for Pittsburgh. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened. There's names out there that you go after if you're able to. Shout out ND Joe. And accusatory as this sounds, and I don't mean it to, is Jack Markowski trying to troll us with all of the AR question articles? 2 within 2 hours is a lot. Love the show and keep up the great work. I will be the guy that takes the bullet on this one. I am Jack's editor, so I am the guy that tells him, hey, you should write this. I'm also the guy that gets final say on the titles, so you could blame me on that one. A lot of times you got we're going to blame Kaboom. That's what we're going to blame. We're going to blame Kaboli. He's the easiest guy to blame. Nobody wants to write about Aaron Rodgers, and Kaboli's tossing it out there. But yeah, Jack's top notch. I think one of the most overrated or underrated, Steelers journalists in the market. Pumped for you guys to get to know him. Told him that he's coming on the show, and he's a little nervous, so we're going to have to roast him a little bit, but we're going to have a good time with him. Shout out ND Joe. Appreciate you as always. Broderick Wallace, shout out my guy. Thoughts on brash and arrogant comment? Oh, with Shadeur Sanders. Excuse me. I was like, did I say these things? I'm never about anonymous sources coming from giant articles that trash a player. Never. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, my source told me that this, and I get quotes all the time. I'll put quotes in stories constantly when I get quotes from sources. I try very hard to make sure that those sources and those quotes are not overly aggressive. I think at that point you're walking a line that is not morally correct. You're not ethically correct. If you're going to stamp your name on it, okay, great. But if you're just taking a poll and saying, hey, I'm going to rip this guy, and that publication's going to go, okay, sounds good, I'm going to rip this guy, then I think it's a little bit too much. I also, at the combine, I heard that Shadeur Sanders didn't have the best interviews, but then at the same time, in the same week, I was told that he had great interviews. So I didn't really know what side to take. I think it depends on the team. I also think it depends on the people in the room, because there are definitely general managers and head coaches in the NFL that are not about that. I mean, the Steelers are a team that is worried about the outside noise. I would imagine that Mike Tomlin's one hell of a coach to sit there, and he's not going to walk away thinking, oh, Shedeur Sanders is arrogant and brash. But I do think there are some coaches in the league and some GMs in the league that are going to think this guy's a little bit too confident, that he's overly confident to the point where he's not going to develop correctly. And that's a concern. I don't know if the Steelers feel that way. I'm not going to say that they do or don't, because I don't know. I don't get the vibe that they do feel that way. I think I get the vibe that they're nervous about the outside stuff, about the Dion talking, about the cameras and the lights and the show that follows Shedeur Sanders, whether he wants it to follow him or not. I don't know if they're worried about the arrogant things or the brash things. I don't know if they feel that way about him. But I could see why teams do, or if teams do, I could see that. I've also been told that he's a great leader. So it went both sides, and I think it just depends on the team and those sitting in front of them. Shout out our boy Miguel. Scale 1 to 10. How pissed is Rooney with how the Justin Fields 2 and the following quarterback search has went? This situation is exactly why Tomlin is terrible. I will say this, that the Justin Fields situation comes from a little bit higher up than Tomlin. He left because of a little bit higher up than Tomlin. I don't know names. I'm not going to name names, but Justin left because of, lack of trust within the organization. And Tomlin obviously was the one who put his name on, this is why I get paid the big bucks, or I get good compensation, or whatever he said. And that tied himself to that decision to bench Justin Fields. But I think it was a collective. And And I don't think Justin was super happy about it. Now, that being said, Rooney's pissed. Okay. Rooney's not happy about Aaron Rodgers and all this. You could tell this guy is tired of waiting and should be tired of waiting. He's the only option for Aaron Rodgers. And at this point, what are we waiting for? Nothing. I think that's what's pissing him off more than anything else. I think if Rooney's upset, which he probably is, it has way more to do with the Steelers having to wait for a guy for 5 weeks rather than them losing Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, because they made competitive offers to both of those guys. But once it changed to Aaron Rodgers, they thought they were going to get a deal done on that Wednesday. We're 5 weeks out. There's no deal. I think that's what's upsetting him more than anything. Shout out Chris once again. Defensive tackle with first, running back with third, quarterback with the fourth, and I am happy. I agree. I agree. I'll give you some good ones. I'd go Kenneth Grant in the first round. I'd pray and pray and pray that Caleb Johnson falls to the third, but I'd also be okay with, maybe reaching on a guy like Damian Martinez. I'd be okay with, I think a Devin Neal is a little bit high for the third round, but depending on how the board falls, I could see him being there. You're hoping that Caleb Johnson falls. You're hoping that Quinshon Judkins falls. You're hoping that those things happen. I'd be good with the third round running back. Quarterback in the fourth is perfect for me. I'm not sold that a name like Tyler Shuck's going to go very high. He would be great if he falls. Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers, Will Howard. I think all of those guys are going to be fourth round quarterbacks. I'd be all about any of them. I think they're good backups who have a little bit more potential than what's to come. And you could look at it and say, okay, that's a good move. I agree with all of that. Rex 7, Shedeur only coming here. Steelers are only accepting the visit for a smokescreen. If we don't even have him in the building, why would a team trade up with us if they see we aren't really interested? Yeah, I agree, but I don't think the Steelers would trade up for another position. I think they'd only trade up for a quarterback in this year's draft just because – why would you trade up? I think they learned their lesson with Devin Bush. Like the Troy Polamalu only happens once a century, maybe, where you get that lucky and land somebody that good. I don't think they'd trade up for another position. I think there's a chance that this is just them doing their due diligence. I don't disagree with you there. If this is the Pittsburgh Steelers just saying, hey, we have to have eyes on everybody. We have to understand everybody. I think it goes the same with everybody that they're bringing in these days. They're bringing in so many options right now that you just look at it and go, yeah, are they really interested in that guy? Or are they just bringing him in because maybe he's going to be there in the first round, or maybe he's going to be there in the second or the third round, and they have to have some understanding of who they're going to get? I think that's a possibility for sure, to have all of these names on their big board and just cross off the pre-draft visit. I think that could be the case, especially this late in the process. But that being said, I don't think they jumped on this train until they started to realize he was going to fall. And you have to take that into consideration. You do have to acknowledge that side of it too, is until all of this momentum came that the Browns and the Giants weren't going to take them, the Steelers were not involved at all. Maybe now that momentum is here, they're saying, okay, let's do this. And maybe it's a smokescreen the other way around. Again, I'm not saying that's likely, but I'm just tossing out all possibilities here. Maybe they're bringing him in for a pre-draft visit and nobody knew about it until I was told about it an hour and a half ago. And that's because they're trying to keep it under wraps that they have interest in Shadeur Sanders. That could be the case too. I think all possibilities are on the table. I don't think it's super. I don't think I'm picking one way or another right now. I'm just kind of laying them all out because I think any of them is a realistic possibility. Justin Gordon, where is Nick? Nick is no longer with us, unfortunately. Nick got another job at Pittsburgh Sports Net, I believe. I keep saying it wrong, and I apologize to my boy Nick. As the head of podcasts over there, he's doing big things, and I'm never sad when anybody leaves. I'm always excited for when they get better opportunities. I tell everybody who I hire when they get hired, I want a coaching tree 10 times bigger than Mike Tomlin's, and I think I'm getting there. And I want everybody to use this as a possibility to go do bigger, better, greater things. But don't get me wrong, we're working on on getting somebody else on this screen, and I'm actually very excited to get somebody else on this. Not excited to replace Nick, but excited to have another talking head next to me, coming from inside the building, hopefully. All right, we're diving into all of our members, all of our other questions. So shout out to all of you guys. Oh, here from Hawaii. Come on, man. Where are you at? I'm sorry I was late, but I'm pumped that you're in Hawaii, my friend. Pumped that you're in Hawaii. If we get Sanders, I'm out. Keeping it going. We do not need a quarterback in the first round. Seems to be the consensus in this chat right now. Let me say this. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers going quarterback in the first round with Shadeur Sanders is the only name outside of Cam Ward that I would justify. The only one. I don't think he's a first-round quarterback in next year's draft, but I do think he's on the verge of it. I do think he's got the upside, and I'd be somewhat okay with that situation. It wouldn't be the best, but I'd be somewhat okay with that situation for sure. How did we go from Russ to Justin to Rodgers to now Sanders? Good Lord. It is dramatic, people. It is dramatic. I don't know. I don't look, if it was up to me, I would have paid Justin Fields. I would have never benched Justin Fields. I would have had a deal done with him the second that the offseason ended. He would have been my quarterback of the future, and we still would have had a situation that's calm. A quarterback that doesn't say a whole ton and is just here to work, and everything would be so smooth. I don't know. That's how I would have went about it. The Steelers have found themselves in the most dramatic situation ever. And again, I don't know how you got here. I don't know how you get out either. I think that's the biggest concern here. ND Joe, it seems like the front office is playing darts in the dark when it comes to the draft. A little bit, to be honest. A little bit. I think at this point, the Steelers are just doing their due diligence on everybody, and you have to read into the tea leaves and say, where do people rank? Because if they're coming in, there's some interest. It's not that there's no interest. They're not doing their due diligence on Riley Leonard. They're not doing their due diligence on a 7th-round kicker. They're doing their due diligence on names that are pretty big and that they have a possibility to have in front of them in the first and the second and the third round. And I think that's very important to acknowledge. Is they're throwing darts for sure, but those darts are not they're not just throwing 6th-round darts. They're throwing darts at guys that they think, okay, there's a possibility he's there and he's the best player on the board. We have to make sure that we have an understanding of whether or not we're willing to take a chance on that player. And I think that's what they're doing here. And that explains a lot of their recent visits, but it also explains Shedeur 100%. Colton, are you going to the big night out tomorrow? And when will tickets go on sale for the draft in Pittsburgh? The second one, I don't think I know yet. I was actually talking, part of the dinner was those within the management office when I was out to dinner with Rooney and them. And we were talking a little bit about it. Not sure when that's going to go on sale. I would imagine it comes early next year, like right after the season is when I would imagine. And I could be wrong on that. It could be way sooner. But I'm just guessing here. I'm not going to the big night out. Would have loved to go to the big night out. Anybody who's going there, I hope you win a boatload of money. I heard they're giving away $1 million. So that's awesome. And my email is noahstrackbine@gmail.com. So if they announce it, send me the video, please, so that we know that Aaron Rodgers is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. Stay focused on that posture, my guy. Got it, dude. You guys, look at one of the hardest things about being a journalist and being a podcast host is the back. Is definitely the back. Maddie, hey, Noah, want to make a side bet? If Jackson Dart gets drafted to the Steelers, you want to let me hop on the podcast? My birthday is in the week after the draft, too. All right. I like this. Okay. I like this. Maddie, I will make, first off, Maddie is, anybody who's been in this chat, Maddie's been around a long time, so appreciate it. I'll go that side bet. Jackson Dart gets drafted by the Steelers. You got 15 minutes of the podcast with Noah Strackbein, and I want your gold. I want everything you got to say. You throw it all out there. I will second to you. I will be your second. We'll do a full segment on here. We'll have a great time. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. And either way, remind me to wish you happy birthday. Unlimited moonballs. Noah, are you saying it's possible we get Rodgers and Shedeur? Your work will be cut out for you. My friend. It will be. Look, I came into this offseason as a complete joke, told my wife and my dad. My dad was here visiting. We were talking. We were just, talking about life and everything going on. And I was like, you know what? To be very honest with you, this was January, I think. It was right. We watched, it was right after the Bills Chiefs game. And I go, my dream offseason is Aaron Rodgers and Deebo Samuel because it's dramatic. And I was joking, obviously. I was just like, I don't even think I'd ever be able to sleep. It would just never end. And somehow it's gotten crazier than I ever imagined it would be. Somehow it peaked and it topped anything my imagination said it was gonna. So shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers because my gosh, 2020, it's going to be fun, dude. That's how I'm looking at this. It's going to be a good time. I'm here for the ride. I'm having a blast. We'll see what happens. Cody Silva. I don't know why you would draft a quarterback first round. He's not going to start this year, and you're going to have 2 holes on D line because Cam isn't getting any younger. Turn 1 into 2 doesn't make any sense. I agree. I'm not drafting a quarterback in the first round of this year's draft if there is a pretty significant number of players ahead of him. I'm going Kenneth Grant remains my pick. Will remain my pick. I'm not changing on that. I think Kenneth Grant is the best fit for what the Steelers need right now and long term. He's got the potential to become an elite pass rusher. Right now, he's a great run stuffer. The Steelers need run defense help. In the long term, they're going to need to replace Cam Hayward. I think it works out perfect. I'm going Kenneth Grant all day long. Eddie the First. If you ever let the voicemail time out for the call in the show, you're a psychopath and should be blocked. Embrace brevity, my people. Look at I'm not agreeing with Eddie the First here. I laugh every time I get anybody's emails. I think I laugh every time I get a voicemail, whether it's 4 minutes or 30 seconds, just because I'm so excited that people want to call, so, but I appreciate the laugh, Eddie. I appreciate the laugh. All right. Just want to make sure that we're not missing any of our super chatters here and none of our things. Shout out Marlon here. Why do you think they're worried about noise? Ben was arrogant and brash. GPAB, Le'Veon, etc. Our coach was arrogant and brash from talking Russ too last year. That's hilarious. I don't disagree with this. But again, just like everything else, I'll state if I was told something or if it's my opinion. And in this case, I was told that the noise is a little concerning, that the noise has the Steelers a little bit iffy on the situation. So I don't know if that's going to last. I don't know if it's going to change, but I do think that right now they are having those conversations. Now, I think this pre-draft visit is huge and is going to give them some idea of whether or not their thoughts on the matter are strong or not. And also, just like you pointed out, GPAB, Le'Veon, they ignore this stuff quite often when the final call is said and done. When they are on the clock, they go, yeah, we'll be fine. No worries. I mean, and now AB, I don't think had those concerns coming in. I think they grew over time. George Pickens definitely did. And I agree with you. I agree with you. The Steelers tend to ignore those stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they ignored it this time either. They also just did Hard Knocks. I will tell you that was not by choice. That was the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, okay, yeah, we'll do the AFC North thing so that we could just get it out of the way and never have to do it again. Where's your partner in crime? Oh, How old do you have to be to go to the big night out tomorrow? I believe it is 21, but I'm not positive on that one. I'm not positive. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody here in the chat. As always, no, what are the thoughts on these guys that met 3 times with the Steelers? Nicky Muware, Matthew Golden, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow. I think any of them are options for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if I had to go in player I would select versus player I would not select, I would go Imuware. I would go Matthew Golden. I don't want to say Matthew Golden, but I'd go Matthew Golden. It addresses need. It addresses long-term need. He's got potential. I'd go Matthew Golden. I'd go Nicky Muware second. That dude is a stud, man. That dude he's 6'3". He hits like any other safety'd hit you, and he runs a 4.3. He's a freak athlete with great ball skills. That guy I think could play anywhere on defense. I'd stick him anywhere on defense. I'd go Imuware second, Jackson Dart, and then Jalen Milrow, but I don't feel good about either of those. I'd go Jalen Milrow in the third and feel great about it. I'd go Jackson Dart in the third and feel great about it. I'd have no complaints about either of them. Imuware and Matthew Golden, I think, are fine prospects. Imuware is a stud. Matthew Golden's the guy that I think I'd guess they draft over Imuware. Carl Spackler, okay, hear me out. Cowboys mess up and take Sanders over Omari and Hampton. Do we jump up? Ooh, I don't know. I don't think you make a move for a running back. I don't think you do. Not in this draft. There's too many of them. I get it. Omari and Hampton's really good, and the Steelers are a running football team, but he's not Ashton Genty, and I just don't think you make a jump. I don't. I think what it does is open the door for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have options later in the draft. I think if Omari and Hampton somehow falls to Denver, maybe you leap him and give up nothing in the process because you're only moving up 2 picks. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd sit there and say you got to move up for a running back. I think that you're putting yourself in a bad spot. I'd be surprised if Shedeur makes it out of the top 10. I, from right now, think it's going to be 9. I think 9 is the spot for Shadeur Sanders. But again, I don't know. He falls faster than any in this draft, and we'll see what happens come draft night. Making sure that I do not miss any, y'all. Hi, Hollywood 931. Hello, I got a sneaky feeling you'll be doing another show tonight on Aaron Rodgers signing to the Steelers. Whoa. What do you know that we don't? What do you know that we don't? It could be tomorrow. What do you know that we don't? That is, now I'm checking my phone. Now I'm out here looking. You got me creeping, man. Now you're going to have me up all night. All right. I love it. I appreciate it. Let's hope not, dude, to be honest with you. I hope it's not tomorrow, though. I hope it's not tomorrow. Unlimited moon balls. What names have to be off the board for us to trade down? I don't think we should pass on a foundational piece to tool up for multiple positions. I would say it goes 2 ways. It's one of 2 situations. The Steelers find themselves with too many names. Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, Nick Imuware, Malachi Starks, probably a quarterback or 2, all on the board. And they just go, Gray's able, and they just go, yeah, we're good. We're going to move back. We could move back comfortably, try to get a 2nd-round pick, and we're still going to get our guy. And I think that's okay because I think Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant could all be, they're all 1, 2, 3, but they're very close. I feel the same about, if you're going to miss out on Emeka Ibuka and get Matthew Golden, not great, but it's a wide receiver. You could live without it. And then it's the other way around. Kenneth Grant's got to be gone. Walter Nolan's got to be gone. Omari and Hampton's got to be gone. Matthew Golden's got to be gone. Emeka Ibuka, Nicky Muware, Malachi Starks, the quarterbacks, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, Gray Zabel is got to be gone. I keep forgetting about that name. That might be the only ones right now where we currently stand, but all those guys got to be gone. And then the Steelers would sit there and say, all right, we're going to move back and we'll find a 2nd-round pick. But I think there's a possibility both of those instances occur. I think it's equal right now. that there are too many guys on the board or there are not enough guys on the board. And I think either way, the Steelers could make a move. I need to get the best player available at a value position, example, defensive tackle. I agree. Again, Kenneth Grant is my guy, will remain my guy. I think the defensive tackle class, you could get a starter in the first 3 rounds in this draft at defensive tackle. You could get a guy who's got all-pro potential in the first round with 4 or 5 names. That's how good this is. Outside of Mason Graham, I still think that guys like TJ Sanders, guys like Darius Alexander are Pro Bowl caliber players if they hit their peak, if they could take this thing further. And I would go defensive tackle any day in this draft. It remains my top pick and will remain my top pick. All right, going to make sure that we GP and Skylar Thompson to Chicago for Tyson Bagent. Sorry. And DJ Moore. Quarterback situation done. Okay. Funny story. I sat behind that guy's dad. I think I've told this before. I've sat behind that guy's dad at the Senior Bowl, the year he was at the Senior Bowl and Tyson's. And his dad, if you didn't know, is a world champion arm wrestler. Scary guy. I talked smack on him for like 10 minutes. I was like, dude, who's throwing the ball over? This guy stinks. He's not good at all. I was wrong. I was way wrong. Somebody tapped me on the shoulder and went, yo, shut up. That's his dad. And I looked behind me and I was like, oh my, you're massive. You're a freakish human being. So almost died because of him. I don't think I want DJ Moore. Not for George Pickens. I don't think that's the situation. And I also don't think it solves the quarterback situation, but I like the optimism. A former player said Tomlin was very hands-on or hands-off with the quarterback position. We need a QB guy to help with the position regardless of who and when we get a rookie. I agree. And to be honest, I'm hoping Tom Arth is that guy. I really am. I look at Tom Arth as a guy who helped develop Justin Herbert, and I'm hoping could help develop whoever the quarterback is in Pittsburgh next year. All right. Anita, once again, next year is the year to trade up. We miss Nick. We all miss Nick. Next year is the year to trade up in this draft. Look at I think there are too many options next year to not go try to get a franchise quarterback. This year, sure, but you're running a risk. Just like every year, you're running a risk. But this year, the risk is bigger. And I truly think that outside of Cam and Shedeur, you're taking a massive risk in the first round. And there are a lot of quarterback classes that people try to talk themselves into that don't work out. And I'm nervous this is going to be one of them. Egyptian Roughneck. Here's my bet. When Rodgers doesn't sign, I want 5 minutes and we will get 15 memberships. I think Rodgers will sign. I can't make a bet on that one, though, because I'm not confident that I'm pretty confident Jackson Dart's not coming to Pittsburgh. I'm not confident that Aaron Rodgers doesn't say, yeah, you know what? We're good. And, goes anywhere else. It doesn't even have, it could be a team we didn't even see coming anywhere else. And I think that that's a real possibility. Walter Nolan dropped hard because of his T-Rex arms. I think it's because he didn't want to work anywhere. And what are we doing? You got to do the pro day. You got to do something. Even Will Johnson's out here putting on his own showcase. You got to do something. You always have to do something. All right. And I think that's all we got. Oh, here we go. We'll finish it off with Grayson the Ginger. Hey, Noah. With Darius Slay and GP Joey Porter Jr. at cornerback, what else do the Steelers do to help their pass defense? I think Nick Emuwari is an option. I think Malachi Starks is an option. I think you could look at so many, to be honest, and say, go get a corner in the middle of the draft to help. But I also think that at the same time, Kenneth Grant helps. Having another defensive tackle, having Keanu Benton out there more helps. Having Nick Herbiggs take a step forward helps. Having Juan Thornhill, who's a quality number 3 safety, helps. Having Darius Slay be the starter with Corey Trice being able to develop and Brandon Echols being out there, who I think is going to be a step forward over Cam Sutton, which isn't that much, but I get it, helps. I look at all that stuff. I think the Steelers have put a lot of things in place to help this stuff. I think moving TJ Watt around is going to be massive. But I think addition-wise, if you could get somebody that allows Keanu Benton to move over one, I think you're in pretty good shape to just let the defense and what they do and the parts that they've been missing kind of finally click and work in your favor. I truly do. All right. That's everything we got. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. Go hit those audio downloads, and please, please, please give us a 5-star review, because I'm still staring at that 4.3. Find all my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers, and we will be back tomorrow. Shout out our members. Shout out our super chatters. If you want to become a member and call into tomorrow's call-in show, you could do so by checking the link in the description in this video. With that said, talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.